Welcome to the Hardtech Podcast.
And everybody, welcome back to the Hardtech Podcast. I'm your host, DeAndre, Harakas, and with my co-host, Grant Chapman.
How's it going, everybody?
CEO of Glassboard, a hardtech product development firm right here in Indianapolis. And today we have a super exciting guest. Honestly, building a company that I definitely could have used, being in the world of football, getting concussions. Joel Sanderson from Oculogica is the Chief Technology Officer and the company behind the EyeBOX, an FDA-cleared eye tracking device that objectively assesses concussions without requiring a baseline test, which I think is really interesting. We're going to dive deep into that, but Joel, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, just to get people kicked off here, I try to give a little bit of an intro. Would love for you to kind of tell us a little bit about your background and then also what kind of brought you into the space of working on concussion tech.
Yeah, my background is mostly in software. I started out, when I was, 7, 8 years old, watching my dad program and watching him code on the computer at home. It was just always super interesting to me. So from there, I guess that passion continued growing, and I just love building technology. So started out in software. Now at Oculogica, obviously it's got the hardware, electrical, and software all combined, which I love that mixture. So gotten into a lot more of the full stack of engineering.
And so did you originally go to school for like the full stack of engineering all the way from the cloud down to, the firmware and so on, or did you actually just kind of teach yourself along that journey?
A lot of it was self-taught. I did, do computer science and physics in college. Other than that, a lot of just learning online, learning from others, experimenting.
Yep, a bunch of what we call driving by braille, just bouncing off those guardrails as you're learning.
Exactly, yep.
No, that's awesome. And so when did you join Oculogica and start working on this, and how old is the tech in the company?
Company's been around about 10 years. I joined about 7 or 8 years ago.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, and can you give us like a story arc of what they started out doing, and was it a university spin out, or how did the tech start? And then where are you guys kind of at today?
So our founder, Uzma Samadani, she's a neurosurgeon by trade, and she was trying to figure out how to assess basically how conscious or how responsive people are that couldn't talk. They're in the hospital bed and they couldn't answer questions, right? So she thought, how can we assess this objectively? She thought of, well, let's put a TV screen in front of them with an eye tracker and see if they can watch the video, see if they're responding to the changes in the video and whatnot. It's kind of where the idea sparked. And then from there, she saw a strong application for assessing concussion. Obviously, you're very awake when you're being assessed for concussion, but the same type of technology where you watch a video moving around the screen with a high-quality eye tracker was able to differentiate between someone that has a concussion, someone that's not. And so, really from there, we've been continued to develop the technology and refine it and, productionalize it, make it accessible to everybody. Because, those first devices that she was doing research with, they look kind of like a Tinker Toy set with these aluminum arms and like a computer monitor strapped on. I think there was some duct tape on there.
Yeah, definitely some 80-20 aluminum extrusion that's bolted together.
Absolutely. Yep. Exactly.
No, that's awesome. And then, that's kind of where you guys started. And where are you guys currently at today? Is this like a briefcase-sized device that can get brought to the field, or what's the current application?
Briefcase size is an interesting way to say it. Yeah, it's about 12 pounds, but it's like a tabletop, kind of all-in-one computer, essentially. Awesome. If you've seen like like a kiosk, it's kind of like that. So it's got a touchscreen on there. So it's easy to move around, like within a clinic or a hospital. Mm-hmm. That particular one's not ready for the sidelines yet, but, maybe someday.
Sure. And so when it comes to like building the EyeBOX is what like your guys' first product was. What was sort of that journey as you guys were building through the hardware? I think there's also like an AI component as well. And then you just kind of like the overall process of getting that product through the FDA.
Well, our initial FDA clearance, like the de novo, so we actually created a new class of classification devices within FDA. So we had to go through a whole de novo submission process to do that. And that pivotal study was actually on that early research device. And so once we got that clearance, that's kind of when I joined the company and worked on, productionalizing it into a real device. We've gone through a lot of iterations of that, like physical design. Initially, it was like this huge kind of wheeled cart that you would push around the hospital. It had like an arm on there that would articulate and could be used with people lying down in a patient hospital bed. We quickly realized that was just too big. It was too cumbersome to move around, too expensive, too hard to ship, all those things. So we worked on making it smaller and smaller until we have the device that we have today, which is you can easily carry it around and reposition it, put it in a case and transport it, all that stuff.
No, that's great. And then, in that, what is the core tech that enabled you to both build like the benchtop version that you first started with and the one now as, we just got, can we explain or get a little detail into like how it actually works? Like what is the secret sauce you guys uncovered?
Well, it's all in the eye tracking, I would say. We use a very high quality eye tracking camera. It's high speed, 500 frames per second. And you need that in order to detect sort of those subtle changes that happen after concussion or if you've got some sort of brain injury. A lot of those things you can't pick up clinically. Like you can't just watch, follow my finger and see if their eyes are following it well enough because it's all like that subclinical, really nuanced changes.
Yeah, so on that I was going to ask, like, is this like, what are you looking for in the biology, right? Is it jitter? Is it lag in the eye tracking, right? Like, what is the mechanism that is when you have a concussion, your eye muscles or nervous system don't work as well? What's the, the tell, I should say?
Yeah, it's more complex than that. So no two concussions are the same. Every concussion is a little bit different. There's actually, potentially 5, 6, or 7 different type of subtypes or phenotypes of concussion. The industry is still sort of like converging around what those definitions are. But, some people don't even have vision change after concussion, but most people do. Like 85% of concussions do have some sort of vision deficit. A lot of it is just the control of the eyes. Your brain and your nervous system just can't control your eyes. And so those differences are what we're picking up. So we have a lot of different metrics that go into the computations. It's really detailed and probably beyond what I can describe all right here, but it is all this stuff. There's different types of eye movements. There's saccades, fixations, all those types of things. And how they change is very nuanced. And so we quantify that, put it into metrics, and use that for the assessment.
No, that's great. So you basically have a matrix of different things you could look for. One of them might be jitter, one of them might be lag, one of them might be fixation, one of them might be random movement, and that's coupled with the video that you're playing, right? Because you're not just tracking eyes, you're giving them a stimulus and recording the response to that. So you guys had to not only develop what you're measuring, but the thing that they track while you measure it. Yeah.
So the stimulus is about 220 seconds long, and it's a entertaining video that moves around the perimeter of the screen. And they watch that. It's funny because people love taking the test because the videos are fun. So,
I think something that's also interesting about your guys' product is that typically when you're looking for, when I was playing football, we would, before the season would even start, we'd take a baseline test. So that if we ever had an event where like the physical therapists or the physical trainers would come around and say, hey, all the guys go sit down and take this test. And basically, if you score differently after you have a big hit in the game, then that's our leading indicator that you're probably concussed. Now, you guys had a different approach where you actually don't need a baseline for you guys to actually diagnose the concussion. Right. I'm curious. That's pretty different. So how did you guys get past that protocol? And like what allows you guys to do that without the baseline?
Yeah, that's a really big, important thing for technology like this because, an emergency room, if you come to an emergency room after, I don't know, a car accident or a fall or even a sports injury, a lot of times you're not going to have that baseline. So you guys were fortunate to do that baseline testing, but, most concussions don't have a baseline score. So the way we, created it and trained the prediction algorithms and went through our validation is we just didn't use a baseline. And essentially our pivotal study, like for what we got our original FDA clearance on, was done in emergency rooms. So I think we had 5 different sites, and 4 of them were emergency rooms. And so it was a perfect population to validate that, where you're not going to have a baseline. We've got a big age range. So our clearance is from 5 to 67 years of age, and which is really, really helpful for a tool like this so that it can be used on almost anybody.
No, that's awesome. And I think the neat thing about that narrative is that, like, you purposely went out to a place where you wouldn't have any training data, right? You didn't have a baseline to go against, and you were able to still use your clinical diagnoses, right? That basically the doctors are determining to be the truth source is the words I'll use along the way. And that's great. And so, through developing this, what was the bigger challenge along the way? You have really complex hardware that has to all work together at some fast frame rates and decent amounts of data that you have to capture at one point. There is the software side, which is the algorithm that's detecting the thing and also playing the video and generating that video. And then there's the clinical side, which concussion diagnosis is a weird, hard place in medicine, and you have to blend all 3. Which one of those was, like, do you think the more challenging for the journey?
Geez, I mean, I think we always need more data, so that's a challenge, right? Getting clean data that you can apply, generally is always challenging, and so, but we have great research partners that help with that. The other thing is there's just a lot of noise in eye tracking data. So it's actually really difficult to parse out, what are those nuanced changes between a control group and your case group, for example. And so we spend a lot of time, you've got a data science team that, looks at that. They look at it at every angle and try to figure out, what are those actual differences and what's noise. So that's probably the most challenging thing from a development perspective. Just wrangling that data in a really good way. The other thing from a technical perspective was, just getting the optics right. Like I said, we've got a very high quality camera. It's got a low noise sensor, high frame rate. The optical lens is tuned for the infrared illumination that we use. And then the space constraints too. It's easy sort of to get good optics when you have a lot of space for a big lens and all this stuff, but when you got to compact that down into something really small, that's more difficult. So
and make it robust enough to survive shipping, setup, and all that, and stay in focus. Right?
Exactly.
Everyone,
yes.
no one realizes how sensitive optics are to focus.
Yep. Yeah, we've got a whole process around making sure the camera is in perfect focus, and we've got like an algorithm that measures how in focus is it, and is it focused at the right point. And we had to put a lot of effort into that.
Joel, I'm curious as well, in your experience building this product, it's a de novo, it's brand new tech, with a lot of different elements that are you self-taught as well. And you're in the world of concussions, right? Which is kind of a unique space to be in, obviously the movie Concussion and things like that. What about the product or the company in the space, or maybe all of them, got you, but also, like, what are you most passionate about within the space when it comes to the technology?
Well, Oculogica is in a really great position for me. It's a really good fit because it's technology and it's growing a business and it's helping people. And so, I've always sort of seeked out new opportunities for creating a business and helping people in some way. And along that, also technical challenges. So that's what's really, attractive about Oculogica for me. I love the startup culture, and I love building things. So.
That's awesome. And on the building sides front, so it sounds like you guys have started really big, right? You started these really big products. It seems like it's like a race to get this thing smaller, more dynamic, more like able to use on the field or in different scenarios. Sort of what's like the vision there in the journey there to continue to make this product more accessible to folks? Yeah,
I mean, ultimately the vision is to get this thing in every emergency room, every urgent care, every sports team, so that everyone that gets some sort of blow to the head can get assessed and know whether or not they have a concussion. They don't have to ask themselves or wonder, did I get a concussion or did I not get a concussion? How should I treat this concussion? What should I do? Should I go back playing, or should I go back to work, or what should I do? So that's our vision, is to basically answer those questions for everybody that has some sort of head injury.
And saying, where are you guys at in that journey from, how portable is it? Who can use it and buy it today? And, who are you trying to target here in the next generation? Like, where are you at in that story arc?
Yeah. So right now, the device is, like you said, it's about 12 pounds. So it's not super portable. It's not something you would take down to the field. But you could use it in like a locker room or a physical trainer's office or something like that if they have the right training to use it and assess concussion. One thing right now is it is an aid in the diagnosis of concussion. So, it's not a black and white answer. It's a data point that a physician can use to help assess whether or not this person actually has concussion. So we are, aiming to make that better and better so that it can be, so that people can have a lot more confidence in the answer of, do I have concussion, right? Because there's a lot of gray area in how everyone in the industry assesses concussion. No one can actually even agree on what the definition of like a true concussion is, or how to, what that gold standard is. So that's really difficult, but we are making a lot of strides in that direction. Ultimately, we'd like it to be something that you can just carry around down to the field, down to, whatever, and, assess people wherever they are.
No, that's awesome. And what's the barrier technically, right? So it's 12 pounds today, right? Let's call it semi-briefcase size, right? It'll sit on a table and flip open. Yeah. Is it power? Is it the optics? Is it just truly like engineering the utilitarian version of the product that is small enough, right? Or is there one piece of the tech that's hard to shrink?
The optics, the eye tracking is really difficult to shrink and still maintain high quality. So we are working on a handheld version, and it's for actually cannabis assessment on the roadside. It uses very similar technologies and looks like binoculars, so it's a lot smaller. The challenge with getting the high quality data is once you make those sensors a lot smaller, there's just a lot more noise. We tried out some eyeglasses that have like sensors built into them. Wasn't high enough quality data for what we needed to do, so we started engineering our own. And it uses pretty similar technology, but it's all made a lot more compact. So that's been certainly very challenging to get it smaller and smaller while maintaining that high quality data.
So, yeah, one of the questions I honestly have for you, Grant, obviously in the product development side, is like, what would be the process that like you would go through to execute on that, or like what's like kind of best practice in your experience working on the products?
Yeah, I mean the fun part that you guys have is not only is it, I'm sure, some amount of power hungry, so batteries are always the size constraint, but I think the big one is I'll call it the 3-sided stool of like cameras, right? You have your sensor size, which the bigger the sensor, both in physical size per pixel and number of pixels, can give you better low light scenarios and faster response times, and you can synchronize them and things like that.
Yep.
You've got the optics, how big they physically are to absorb X amount of light, right? There's only so much, was it lumens per square meter or in light intensity per square meter.
Yep.
So the bigger your optics, the more light you get, the more data you can get without noise. Yep. And then the last one is frame rate. Can I have enough compute on a mobile device that is going to give me that frame rate that you were saying that you need? And those are like all the variables that go into a big blender. You kind of got to figure out the right balance that the smoothie tastes good.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And so I think that's the fun part. And the neat thing is you guys have enough data and are old enough as a company and technology. You know what you need. The data set that you need, and you could go iterate on frame rate, sensor size, light amount, optic size to go benchtop, right? Have it all on 80/20 in a bench and continue to iterate until you are as small as you want to be, but still get that data.
Yeah.
Right. And then you go build a product around those core technological pillars that will be the product, and everything else is just a wrapper, right? A lithium battery, a plastic case, IR light that is the shape of the binoculars that you go into. So that's fever dream. Was that a pretty similar path that you guys took down to get there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, there's definitely trade-offs when you make it more compact and smaller. And so we've been exploring with the frame rate in particular on those embedded systems. They just don't have the power to do 500 frames per second at high resolutions like that. So we have to do some technical tricks and things with like cropping and regions of interest and all those things to really get down there.
Yep.
So.
No, that's awesome. Again, there's so many tricks of the trade. You can do it in optics. You can do it in processing. You can do it in storage. You can do it in post-process, right? Are we doing interpolation to try and, gain some of the data we lost? And, it's always like, where do I want my complexity? And there's no clear answer until you start poking around and finding out what's easy and hard to manipulate.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Even in
awesome.
like the software that processes those images, there's trade-offs between, you can get your noise really far down if you do a lot of like post-processing and whatnot, but then you can't run it in real time. So there's a lot of trade-offs, and we've spent a lot of time tuning that to make it reliable, fast and easy to use.
And the next question I have for you, Joel, is around like more like the company size. Like, how big is the company now?
We have about 10 employees, and we're pretty distributed around the country. I'm in Minnesota, and we do most of our like actual hard tech engineering here in Minnesota because that's just so much easier in person. Can work with the mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and 3D print things, look at it together, put stuff together in the garage and assemble it, see how it works, iterate on that. It's super hard to do when you're distributed, but on the other hand, software and data and stuff like that is much easier.
Yeah, it's always hard when you got the electrical engineer, the embedded software engineer, and the mechanical engineer in a room all like pointing at each other. This problem's yours, right? The sensor's misaligned. No, the software's not reading it right. And the electrical engineer's like, no, you got data in the lines, and like, which one of us has got to go fix this thing?
Yeah. Yep.
No, so much easier in person. And then, how do you guys make your devices right now? Do you use a contract manufacturer? Do you get some parts subbed out and then you do final assembly and ship? How have you guys structured the delivery of what I'll call the physical good?
Yeah, we've got a contract manufacturer here in Minnesota, and a lot of it is sub-assemblies or like the computer comes from the computer manufacturer, so we don't like build the computer itself, but yeah, then they do all the assembly, inspection, testing, and then they deliver it to us. We do another inspection and then eventually ship it to the customer.
That's awesome. So you guys are the ones that are doing final inspection and ship. Like you guys are touching the product last. It's not a drop ship from a CM.
Right. Yep.
No, that's awesome. And then what computer, this is just me asking nerdy questions now, what computer-based system are you running on, if you can share that? Like, is it a Linux operating system? Is it at that level? And also, what's the hardware? Who are you using?
So we've got, like I mentioned, we've got the two different models that we're sort of working on right now. And so the EyeBOX uses a Intel processor, and I think Windows IoT on it, so that runs as the OS. That's been a pretty good platform because we run most of the applications .NET and just works pretty well. The handheld one I was talking about has a Yocto Linux build that we're running on there, so that's got an ARM IMX8 processor in there.
Yep, we've done a ton on the IMX series in Yocto. It's so powerful that the way you can basically revision it and version it yourself and control some of that. The FDA really likes when you're in control of the system. Yeah, what we've found. How's Windows IoT been from a compliance and regulatory space? Like, that's just so fascinating for me that's an operating system that Windows is going to publish updates for way more frequently. And how do you go through that upgrade path and revision, and what's controlled and not controlled in that process for you guys?
I would say it hasn't been really an issue at all. It's worked out pretty well. We just install updates as needed, and our software updates are controlled through our own deployment process. So we've got like over-the-air software updates at install, but the customer can choose when to do it, and it's seamless for them.
Awesome. And you guys have your software checkouts and your quality system that before you publish an update, you've ran some amount of background testing to prove that it's going to still maintain functionality that the FDA cares about, and make sure you record that you tested that.
Oh yeah, we've got a rigorous QA process, the whole QMS, everything.
No, I love the that narrative. Like, if you haven't done a regulated product, everyone thinks it's really scary, and it's not that scary. You just got to write it all down.
You got to write down everything. Yep.
I did this thing on this date, and it sucked, and we scrapped that version, but I did it on this date. And versus everyone thinking, oh, the FDA is going to think we're bad at our jobs if we show all these bad test data. It's like, no, they want to see all the bad test data that led you to the good test data. Yeah. Telling that narrative is the 8/10 of the battle.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And like for like cybersecurity testing, for example, they want to see what bugs did you fix, and if you if you didn't find anything, you probably didn't look hard enough, right? So they love to see that.
Yeah, it is that one, that double-edged sword balance of like, you fix too many bugs, like, man, you should have looked at this deeper the first time. But you're right, if you show 0 bugs you found, month over month or year over year, it means you're probably not looking hard enough.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Joel, one of the last questions I always love to ask on the show, assuming that we have folks out here that are looking to get into the medical device space, maybe they're looking at a de novo and they're venturing in the world of hard tech, et cetera. What's some advice that you would have for founders in the medical hardware space that is reflective of your experience so far?
Definitely, customer testing. So making sure that the device, your product, is going to be useful for them. We've gone through a lot of iterations. Like I said, we had that big device, did some testing. Turns out it was not the right type of fit. We could have saved money and time by, maybe doing a prototype first. One of the things that I like to do from a engineering perspective is I got this pink foam and I cut out the actual device, and it's just like this hot glue and pink foam model, I guess. And I show it to people and be like, hey, what do you think of this? How would you use it? How would you interact with it? So a lot of customer testing, and that's maybe on the usability side, but even on the clinical side, if we're working on a new feature or a new model or something, we ask our researchers, our partners, all of the industry, is this useful? If it has this performance level and it correlates with this, clinical outcome, is that useful to you or is it not? And if it's not useful, then we'll iterate on that until we find something that is useful. So customer feedback and just making sure that what you're building will actually solve the customer's needs, the market's need.
Yep. No, I love the pink foam. We have the joke in the office that it's CAD, cardboard aided design, is the very first step, right? Like duct tape and cardboard. Like, is this the right shape, form factor? Could you even put your head in this thing and hold still? Right? It's you might nail the eye tracking and the processing and the battery life, but if the user can't hold their head straight in it because it's the wrong angle or not adjustable enough, you've lost the market. And again, I think that's just such a powerful lesson for early stage founders. Like, everyone wants to race to the product and the technology, get to the finish line. I'm like, no, go show really early stage mock-ups to everyone you can. Figma and FigJam from a UX click through, run the app in the background where you literally, the user tells you which button you click on and you scroll to the Figma screen that is that screen that you were mocking up, in PowerPoint or Figma. And, for physical stuff, literally have the unit and say, hey, hit that button. It's not going to do anything, but then you flip to the screen, right? You hold up the thing, this is the screen that would pop up. Is this useful? And doing those, make-believe user stories, everyone feels silly. We're all back in kindergarten playing house and playing kitchen again and the play place. But it's really important to get that feedback of, oh, I'd hate it if that's the thing that came up next, or I can't hold my head here. Yeah.
And it helps accelerate that velocity a lot of times, because you don't want to build your whole product and then there's a major thing wrong, right? So if you iterate quickly on those design things, you can actually get the product out the door more quickly.
And to that point, I really do think that you're exactly right. You need to talk to customers as frequently and often as possible, regardless of your size as well. I think that can also be stated too. I think that your ability to have conversation with customers does a number of things. One, if you're doing the hardware, you get to know if it's going to be the right shape and feel and the usability of the product, whether it's software or it's hardware. So that's pretty consistent across the board. I think that secondly, that obviously having conversations with customers gives you more confidence, creates a better culture on the team on what we're messaging, how we're feeling about the product. All of a sudden, investor conversations become a bit easier because you can show some early stage validation. In the world of product and creating things that people want and finding this mystical land of product market fit is as simple as talking to your customers as often as possible. I think it's just a great point to founders that are starting, or even if you're in growth stage, if you're SMB or even enterprise. Still talking to your customer, the people who are really using it, is going to get you that much closer to success.
One of the things that we do on that front is one of our engineers joins every demo. So every demo that our sales team does, there's an engineer on that call to hear firsthand from those customers, what are their needs? How are they using it? What do they need to do? And that's helped create that visibility a lot for us. So,
and I'm sure it fosters creativity and problem solving.
Yes,
because engineers want to make puzzles fit together. They're sitting there watching a user trying to use a thing and seeing where the puzzle piece doesn't fit, and it'll spark them ideas in real time, which wouldn't be translated if just the sales rep came back home and said, well, this didn't work well. Right? The engineers can ask for a bunch of detail of why not, and the sales rep will be like, well, you just need to make it better. And better is never good feedback.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, Joel, thank you so much for being on the show. Everybody, this is the Hardtech Podcast. I'm your host, DeAndre Harakas, with my co-host, Grant Chapman.
Thanks you so much for coming. And Joel, thanks for hanging out with us and spending the time.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
And tune in next week. Thank you, guys.